Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to get ready to do this live stream. I've just brewed the first coffee of the evening. This one's called Caramel Cookie, is the name of this brew. Ooh, we got to mute. No, can't have that making sounds. No, we got to mute you. Okay, muting that one. All right, so we have this caramel cookie. You don't know the power of the dark side. We have this caramel cookie coffee. That's nice. We have a list of topics regarding Kiss. We have a parcel to unbox right here. And, hey, Mike Kudis, how you doing? Max, fuck, this is perfect timing. I was just about to play some music while I get ready to do the show, because the show starts officially at 7. So, for you. All right, getting ready. My daddy was a murdering man. There we go. Perfect. Now where did I put tonight's t-shirt? Oh, I'm wearing it. Tonight's t-shirt. You want some more? You want some more Max the Axe? Yeah, you do. You want some more Max the Axe. Just getting my last few things ready. More things I need to do. One of them I have to do here. There's some files. Thank you very much. I can't actually see my own face right now because I'm actually editing some audio. Forgot to do this earlier. Export audio. Get this to... Alright. Okay. Okay. I think we're going to do the show with hat tonight. We're going to do it with hat. This song is killer, Max. This song is a serious killer. I'm loving it. This is Max the Axe, Magnum PI. Man, it's just a killer. That riff. It was supposed to be Matthew McConaughey in the remake of Magnum PI. I don't like that, Maxie. I have Max the Axe with us tonight. This is the first time that he's... Look how shaggy I am. I meant to shave before this. You know what? I gotta get rid of the hat. I look like Gilligan or something. Okay, so we have Max the Axe with us tonight, who's the artist we're listening to right now. Hey, one last thing. Okay. Oops. Well, Mike, I appreciate that you're watching tonight. I appreciate that. I also appreciate that lick. This is killer. Yeah, I'm loving it. Let's see if we can... I can't invite people, unfortunately. But let's make sure Frankie Toms is here. Frankie Toms. I'm just going to tag people in the comments is what I'm going to do instead of inviting them. I know Harrison didn't want to miss this. Unfortunately, Deke is away tonight. Uncle Meat is away tonight. And John T. Snow is away tonight. So I am largely on my own. Got to get Chris Sarr in here. I fucking made this sign for him and he's not even here. Like, seriously. I made the sign for him and he's not even here. There's Frank. Well, I want the sign to be visible for at least until he gets here, you know? So that was Magnum PI by Max the Axe that we just heard. And welcome to the Friday night live stream. I am very excited to do this. It's my first solo gig in quite a few weeks. The last 3 weeks in a row, I believe it was 3 weeks in a row, Mr. Deke was the co-host. And week before that was Uncle Meat. I had Holin a few weeks before that. It's been a cavalcade of guest stars, but I'm solo tonight. I am Peter Criss, circa 1980. Harrison is here. Okay. Chris, sorry, he saw the sign. Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, so, and the reason I did that is because Chris is always complaining that I need a sign behind me that says, please stand by. Tonight we're doing the Kiss list, but we have a number of other things scheduled, and only now do I realize I don't have my Swiss Army knife in this room with me, so let me go get that. So first up tonight, we have a belated birthday unboxing, or unbagging perhaps, depackaging. This one comes from Aaron of the KMA. And spoiler alert, I am currently kind of working on potentially getting him to co-host a show. It shouldn't be too difficult. I don't want to reveal too many details, but that's sort of a plan. And every year he sends me a birthday gift, and usually a Christmas gift too, because he's a nice guy. And I am going to open this. Oh, good. I'm going to open this right now. Now he said to open it carefully, that I don't slice anything inside, so I will do just that. Open it as carefully as I can. And just rip. Okay. Oh my God! This is applicable to tonight's show. This was in no way planned. Peter Criss. Stuffed Peter Criss guy. He is going to love... There's more. He is going to love this. He is going to love that this happened. Paul Stanley Kiss guy. This is hilarious. A Gene Simmons Kiss guy, and this one's got a cape. He's got a little cape. Oh, man. And the smallest one of the bunch, an Ace Frehley space guy. Oh, man, that is awesome. Oh, there's usually a note involved as well, but I don't see a note. I don't see a note, but oh my God, that's Aaron of the KMA, who just gave me all this awesome Kiss stuff, which is so funny since tonight's show is about 80s Kiss. And all of these guys were in Kiss when we start the story. This is incredible. I'm blown away. I am absolutely blown away. You know what? For Aaron. I wish Deke was watching right now. Deke is taking the evening off, and he loves Aaron. We both do, and I can't believe this. Deke would really appreciate the irony here. Oh, and tonight's T-shirt is the Cinematic Sound Archive with Jason Drury. And, yeah, super guy. I've done, I don't know how many radio shows with Jason Drury and Rob Daniels over at CKWR for Visions and Sound. And I'm going to close the blinds, unfortunately. And Rob and Chris just put up the clap icons. That's sweet. Thanks, guys. Yeah, 3 cheers to Aaron. He's just a cool guy. And yeah, so Jason Drury, I am promoting a different T-shirt every stream. And Rob, I will have you know, the Visions and Sound shirts, I believe they shipped on Tuesday. So I should have mine very, very, very soon. So yeah, like Jason Drury, I know him from Visions and Sound, which is Rob Daniels' show that he hosts on CKWR. It's on tonight at midnight. And I do not know what tonight's theme is, but I'm sure Rob can comment on that. Unfortunately, and this is not really a secret to anybody because I've been open about this issue, I suffer from insomnia, and one of my problems is waking up too early in the morning, and it can really kind of cripple me for the next day. You know, just feeling tired and sluggish and lethargic and foggy. So part of my plan to deal with my insomnia is to go to bed earlier, and that means I often miss Visions and Sound at midnight. I want to, however, having said that, to successfully deal with insomnia, you also have to be able to have the odd night where you do stay up and do things like listen to Visions and Sound. So it's going to be a balancing act, and I'm going to have to deal with it at some point. You know, just break the rules and stay up and listen to the show. And tonight's theme is angels on Visions and Sound, so movies related to that. I wonder if any of them have the word angel in the title. Scott Peddle is jealous of the Kiss stuff, I'm assuming. Yeah. Dude, that was a total surprise. Like, he told me that he sent me a birthday parcel, and he told me he thinks it would be a great idea to unbox it live. I hadn't chosen this week's theme yet, which is 80s Kiss, and I got all this Kiss stuff. Here. Big two-handed gulp. I call it the Trump. Okay, so why don't we get on with it? I just have to find where I put my Kiss list. Oh, there it is. Behind the blinds. Why don't we start? Tonight, the theme is 80s Kiss. And, you know, the 80s is when I got into Kiss. 80s is when Scott Peddle got into Kiss. The 80s is when Chris Sarr knew me as a Kiss fan at school. I cannot get the light good here at all. I'm kind of fucked. Yeah, so I came on the Kiss train around 84, 85, but there was a lot more. And I'd like to start in 84, 85 just for a moment, just so you can understand my perspective. When I came into Kiss, they were a band that did not wear makeup. In fact, they were 2 albums into a no-makeup career. And for me as a kid, the old albums sounded like jangly rock and roll, like what I imagined the Beatles sounded like, you know? I wanna fuck you, you know? That kind of stuff. So, you know, for me, 80s Kiss was really the only cool Kiss when I first got into the band. And only after... There's a neighbor that both Scott and I know. His name was George Balaz, and he died a few years ago, unfortunately. Otherwise, he'd be watching tonight. I know he would be. And we razzed George quite a lot in the old days because he was definitely a character. But he was also the guy that exposed Scott and I... No, that's not true. Scott had Todd Meyer. But we did have George Balaz as this kind of intermediary between us and Kiss tying us all together. For me, it was George that really exposed me to a lot of Kiss music. And I started by taping albums off George, really. I'm going to be posting a post coming up in the next few days, I think, about recording all these Kiss cassettes back in the 80s off George and discovering the music that way. And the first album that we're going to talk about tonight is an album that is tainted in my mind because the night that I taped it off George, he decided that he was going to demonstrate how good he can play the bass. I'm going to do it up here because, you know, that's what Paul Rudd does in the movie, right? Slap into bass. Slap into bass. George played bass along to every single song on Unmasked while he was recording it for me. And his bass bled into the tape. So for years, until I bought a store-bought copy of Unmasked, I had to listen to George playing bass over all of those songs, side 1 and side 2, for like years. I'm thinking I must have recorded that one off him in like 85, 86, and I didn't get my own legit copy until like 88. So 2 years of hearing nothing but George Balazs playing bass on my Kiss Unmasked. But let's talk about the album itself. In 1980, Kiss were already at the breaking point, but they were trying to keep up a front. They were trying to... with the Beatles before them, having the original 4 seemed critical. You know, the Beatles were John, Paul, George, and Ringo. That's it. As far as... well, Pete Best and all that. But you know what I mean. The Beatles that people know and love are those 4 guys. And Kiss thought that they were in some serious trouble if the original foursome split. You know, you can see this attitude right going back to the very beginning of Kiss, that it's the 4. But now it was actually going to become the 3. Because Peter Criss was, shall we say, succumbing to his weaknesses. Scott Peddle got into Kiss in 79. Holy shit. Fucking A, man. So this is your story right now. Peter Criss was succumbing to substances and alcohol and all that stuff, and he thought that he was, too big for his britches, and he went solo. But Kiss kept it quiet. Their first album that had absolutely nothing to do with Peter Criss was Unmasked in 1980. And it's one of my favorite Kiss album covers. It's the one with the comic book cover. And each panel is a little piece of art to itself, really. It's a fantastic album cover. I know the members of Kiss have since trashed it as saying it was unfocused. Inside that album cover was an album that I've really, really, really grown to appreciate over the years, which is Unmasked. And this is an album that Uncle Meat and I have gone back and forth on repeatedly. And I've really grown to love it, especially in the last year. I've been very, very focused in the last year on albums that I played when I was 13 or 14, when I first got into rock. And I'm sure that this has to do with the fact that my brain is a mess. But Unmasked, I have nothing but good memories about that album. Nothing but good memories. Phone's ringing. And I've grown to love it more and more and more over the years. Uncle Meat's kind of twisted my arm a little bit into seeing the genius on the pop side of it. And it might not be a great Kiss album, but I think it's a great pop rock album. I think if it was out by... let's say it was not Kiss. Let's say it was Bon Jovi's debut album. I think I would have thought much more highly of it from the get-go. So, Unmasked is a really special album to me. Now, even more than ever. Because I'm just going to close the door because I don't want to get too much noise. Because Unmasked, I've been reliving it so much recently. It's just grown on me so much. And I really appreciate a lot more. It's a flawless pop rock album. I think for many years I didn't want Kiss to have a pop rock album. But there it is. Take another sip of the coffee. You know what? I was so excited about these Kiss figures, these Kiss dolls, that I forgot something I was going to do at the very start of the show. So, Frankie Toms. I want to make sure you're still here. This is for you, Frankie Toms. I'm not going to do it until Frankie Toms checks in. I wanted to play something that I worked on before COVID hit. It's one of my a tiny piece of one of my Sausage Fest intros, and I can't play anything that will identify a song. Obviously, that has to be a surprise for the day. But I can play this one little bit, partial bit. It's just a partial bit that I can play because otherwise it'll spoil what song it is. But I need Frankie Toms. There he is. Okay, Frankie Toms. This is a partial bit from one of my Sausage Fest recordings this year. This is a sneak preview. I would just crank it up a bit here.
I'm here with legendary film director Werner Herzog. Werner, welcome to the show. You were just on The Mandalorian. Welcome back to Earth. What's it like being home?
I've dwelt among the humans. Their entire culture is built around their penises. It's funny to say they are small. It's funny to say they are big. I've been at parties where humans have held bottles, pencils, thermoses in front of themselves and called out, "Hey, look at me, I'm Mr. So-and-so Dick. I've got such and such for a penis." I never saw it fail to get a laugh.
Oh, so you've been to Sausage Fest.
It sounds awful, yeah. It sounds like New Age, or it sounds like people who go to abominations like yoga classes.
What?
Okay, that's as much as I can play without giving away the song. But that was something that I was working on back in February. This year did not turn out like I thought it was going to turn out as far as my Sausage Fest recordings go. Anyway, that was for Frankie. That was a sneak preview of something we're going to be hearing in a month. And for Max the Axe, if he's still here too. Okay, Rob liked it. Good. Thank you, Rob. So, back to Unmasked. One of the interesting things about it, as I said, it had no involvement from Peter Criss whatsoever. He was just on the album cover. He was just in the music video. He had nothing to do with anything to do with the music. Anton Fig, who you probably know from the Letterman Band, but is, to us Kiss fans, he's better known as the guy who played drums on the previous Kiss album, Unmasked. Peter Criss was barely on... Dynasty. He played on the previous Kiss album, Dynasty. Peter Criss was barely on that album. He was only on one track called Dirty Livin'. Excuse me. Anton Fig played on all of Unmasked, and the songs were split vocally, pretty much equally, between Ace, Paul, Gene, and Peter. And some of the best songs were the Ace tunes. So, that will come into it when we get to the next studio album. Peter Criss went solo. He had two solo albums out during the early 80s, Out of Control and Let Me Rock You. On Out of Control, he purposely didn't put his face on the album cover. It had a picture of a jukebox exploding. And I don't mind these albums, to be honest with you. They're not rock, particularly. They're easy listening rock. You know, I guess it's what they'd call yacht rock today, but kind of out of tune in terms of the vocals. There's a couple good songs on them, though. And Let Me Rock You has a song co-written by Gene Simmons called Feels Like Heaven. Let Me Rock You had a John Lennon cover of Jealous Guy, which is actually, it's not bad. Peter Criss did a couple, I'm going to say they're decent. I'm going to say his two solo albums are decent. He had no respect in the rock world, though, because it wasn't rock. And he just didn't have the talent to transition into that easy rock world where there were giants among stars, Peter Criss, he doesn't have that kind of vocal capability to compete with those guys, the Rod Stewarts and whatnot. He couldn't really write songs, not without a lot of help. Sorry, Peter. I'm just being honest. Kiss jumped back into the studio where they went on tour. They got a new drummer called Eric Carr. His real name was Paul Caravella, but you can't have two guys named Paul in the same band, or three guys named Paul, as the case may be, because Ace Frehley's real name is Paul Frehley. Unusually, Paul Stanley's name is Stanley Eisen. He's not a Paul. So you had a Paul that's not a Paul. So Eric Carr couldn't be Paul, and he couldn't be Caravella because that name was too ethnic. Max the Axe with a funny comment. Approximately 600 of the 16-year-old girls that Gene banged felt like heaven, I'm sure. I'm sure you're right, man. Gene Simmons is a legendary Lothario, but we won't get into that. There's no need and no time. They went on tour with Paul Caravella. The tour wasn't as huge a success as Kiss needed it to be. It was the first time in Australia. I believe their first time ever in Australia. Do I have that right? I think so. Where they were just, gloriously received. But then they had to make some new music. And they made an attempt at a rock album. But Gene and Paul kind of collectively thought that Kiss needed to do something big again, something like Destroyer, you know, something more than just a rock album. They got Destroyer producer Bob Ezrin back, and the problem there was that Bob Ezrin was suffering from some substance abuse problems, and he wasn't quite as focused as he should have been. But neither were the band, because they were falling apart. You know, they had this new guy in the band who wasn't a full member. Eric Carr, unfortunately, was a... Scott Peddle brings up a really, really excellent point. Thanks, Scott. This is why I wanted you to co-host tonight. The episode of Kids Are People Too, where Eric Carr was introduced on TV. That's 100% true. You can find that clip on YouTube. Look for it. And he's so obviously glad to be in Kiss. He was just a young guy. He just wanted to be... He was a new energy to the band, but he wasn't a member. There were only 3 members of Kiss now, and the other guy didn't get a vote. He was a hired guy. So he had no say. They started to record some songs. Nowhere to Run, Partners in Crime, Down on Your Knees, I'm a Legend Tonight. And these were more rock songs, but they didn't fit this image that Gene and Paul had for the next album. These songs ended up going on a European EP called Kiss Killers. Where did I put my records? I have so little Kiss vinyl, unfortunately. But here's my copy of Kiss Killers that I acquired from Bob Shipper. This was bought in Calgary, Alberta in 1986 by Bob Shipper. This is the German version with the backwards S logo, the Zs as we called them. This is a great little greatest hits album. Did I call it an EP earlier? I think I called it an EP. That's obviously wrong. They could have put out an EP with those 4 songs on it, but here's the Kiss Killers album. It's actually a greatest hits with the 4 new songs, 2 at the start of each side. And they stuck the live version of Rock and Roll All Night on at the end. Japan got some other tracks on here. This album completely erases The Elder and Unmasked from the Kiss discography because they were already... I have this in the wrong order, I think. This can't... I always screw up every night, don't I? This comes after The Elder. But it's okay, because we were talking about those 4 songs that they rejected for the album that they wanted there to be their big event, which was The Elder. This is a reissue, but it's The Elder. Look at that album cover. Stunning, isn't it? It's one of the problems with the album. Gene had this idea. It is a gatefold, though. Beautiful gatefold. Gene had this idea that Kiss had to do a concept album, and it had to be based on this superhero idea he had about gods and kids with powers and shit. It was quite impossible to follow a storyline, especially because the record company forced them to shuffle the order of the songs to make the album more accessible. They got strings, they got horns, they got Lou Reed. It's a mess of an album. But guess what? I love it. I love it. It's unlike any other album Kiss have ever done or ever will do again. Kiss doing a concept album is kind of weird. It's kind of a block-headed sound. You know, it doesn't have the grace. It doesn't have the depth. It doesn't have the panache of so many other concept albums. It's kind of flat. It's a band playing like 4-chord rock with a fucking orchestra behind them. You know, it's weird. But I love it. It's idiosyncratic. It's I don't know. It's a hard album to describe. So I ingest more caffeine in an effort to generate the brain juices that I need to describe The Elder. Needless to say, it was a flop, and it was Eric Carr's first album. It wasn't very well produced either. His drums, they could have sounded better. You know, it's the debut album for the new drummer, and his drums kind of sounded hollow, echoey, buried. And Ace Frehley was noticeably absent on most of the tracks. He was probably having alcohol abuse problems. I'm sure he would say that. I don't know what he would say. He was having some problems, I'm sure, and he recorded most of his parts in his studio at home while Kiss and Bob Ezrin were in a different recording studio, and they would mail tapes. And Frehley claims that most of his guitar work was cut during the mixing phase. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But when they did play on a TV show called Fridays, I believe it was, Scott, they played a track called The Oath. They played a track called The Oath on a show called Fridays with Frehley. And he played a ripping guitar solo that is not on the album. So, you know, there might be some truth to the fact that he says a lot of his guitar work was cut from the album. I don't know. Regardless, there was only one Ace vocal on the album, and I think maybe only 2 Ace co-writes. I'm not sure exactly without looking. The point being, there was a noticeable absence of Ace, and Kiss did not tour behind this album because it was not a success. They were supposed to tour. They had this grand design for a concept with, like, the stage being the battleground between the forces of good and evil and all this stuff. Yes, also on YouTube, says Scott Peddle, that Friday's performance. Yes. Thank you, Scott. I wish you were co-hosting tonight. Yeah, so no tour, album flopped. It was the least successful Kiss album to date, and people were worried, including Kiss. You know, they're losing money by the buckets. Gene Simmons is out there dating Cher or Diana Ross or whoever. You know, that stuff don't come cheap. You know, they had a lifestyle to maintain, and they were maintaining it. So the money had to keep flowing, and they had a problem. Again, they were losing another member, Ace Frehley. Incidentally, those tracks on Kiss Killers, the album that I showed you earlier, which is a compilation from Europe, Ace doesn't play on the new tracks on this album. That's Paul Stanley, Bob Kulick, and reportedly Robin Crosby from Rat played a little guitar on this too, although the source is not that reputable. Ace didn't play on the 4 new songs. So, you know, he was checked out. He was done. And Kiss needed to make another album. And that album, I will show you a couple versions of in a minute. That album was critical because Kiss, you're a mess, says Chris Sarr. Thanks, buddy. And Scott says he's shy. Yeah, but you co-hosted with me once before. Anyway. I'm shy. Anyway. Jeff Goldblum. They needed a guitar player. Obviously, the most critical member of most rock bands is either the singer or the lead guitar player. And Ace really had legions of fans. And with them already kind of worried / alienated by the lack of Ace Frehley on The Elder, and they were going to be very disappointed next time Kiss came out with an album. And once again, Kiss kept up the facade that Ace was still in the band. Ace appeared in the music video. Ace appeared in those live TV performances where they mimed to I Love It Loud. Scott Peddle needs a haircut. I do agree with you there, bud. But you don't have an excuse because your wife is a hairdresser. What's his fucking excuse? I need a haircut. His wife is like one of the best hairdressers in town. I've seen her work. Anyway. Kiss set out to get a new guitar player, but writing and recording for the new album had to start. They got Bryan Adams, Jim Vallance to co-write some tracks, and a guy by the name of Vincent Cusano, who I believe was from Connecticut. But they made him lie and say he was from New York. Or they said his heart is from New York. Kiss is all about image. Vincent Cusano played a lot of the lead guitar in the album, but according to my notes, so did Robin Ford, Steve Ferris, and Paul Stanley. They were looking at hiring a bunch of different guys. According to Mr. Deke, who is not with us tonight, I'm sorry. I wish he was. But according to Mr. Deke, Rick Santers from Triumph, the 4th guy in Triumph. And from Santers, of course. But the 4th guy in Triumph, Rick Santers, tried out for Kiss at that point. And, according to Gene Simmons, down to the studio one day walked in Eddie Van Halen. And Gene and Eddie went out to lunch, and this is all from Gene Simmons. None of this has been corroborated by anybody else, keep in mind. According to Gene Simmons, Eddie Van Halen just poured his heart out and complained about how much he hated David Lee Roth and being in Van Halen, and asked Gene, could I join Kiss? And according to Gene, Eddie Van Halen was just too recognizable to be in Kiss. Make of that story what you will. Yes, Rob, Bryan Adams, before he was famous. Let's get the writing credits out here, bud. This is the album, Creatures of the Night. You'll see that Ace Frehley on the cover. All right, so writing credits. Side 1. Rock and Roll Hell was written by Gene Simmons, Bryan Adams, and Jim Vallance. And that song was also, I believe it's a BTO cover? I'm not a... You know what? I know there's another... We gotta look this up. Something funky is up with Rock and Roll Hell. I know BTO recorded that song. Give me a second here. We're going off script. I'm going to read from my own review where I know I covered this subject. Rock and Roll Hell. Okay, so there is a BTO version right here. The interesting thing about the song is it is actually a thorough reworking of an old BTO song written by Jim Vallance. In fact, Vallance claimed that Simmons only insisted on reworking the song in order to get writing royalties. In other words, Rock and Roll Hell was co-written by Jim Vallance and Bryan Adams, but Gene Simmons insisted on modifying the track just enough to get a co-write on the song. So that's on side 1. On side 2, War Machine, another one of the heaviest songs in the album, is another one written by Gene Simmons, Bryan Adams, and Jim Vallance. What year? This is 1982, Rob. And at the same time, Eric Carr from Kiss had a co-write on a Bryan Adams album. You can look this one up. The song is called Don't Leave Me Lonely, and I think it's on Cuts Like a Knife. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's one of the heaviest songs on that particular Adams album that it's on. Eric Carr couldn't get many songs on Kiss albums, but he sure got one on a Bryan Adams album. But they kept up this rather silly facade that Ace Frehley was still in the band when he was not. I'm going to show you my other copy of Creatures of the Night. This one I have not opened. This is a 1995-ish reissue. Glow-in-the-dark vinyl. And it's a shame that I've never opened it. But after this many years, why open it? Why bother? I'd like to see an open copy. Yes, Rob, after Bryan Adams' disco days, he did a song called Let Me Take You Dancing as his debut. And it is a song that he's completely disowned, has not reissued. Mike Kudis, Don't Leave Me Lonely. No, it's not the Angel song. This is a Bryan Adams. I love it. Hey, Michael Lefebvre, nice to see you tonight. I Love It Loud is my all-time favorite Kiss song. And yeah, the single from Creatures of the Night was I Love It Loud, which is a huge song that got me... It was the first song that got me into makeup era Kiss. And, yeah, great music video. It sort of played into the whole 80s thing about rock and roll causes, mind control. They were using, in the video, the television to control the minds of the audience. It was hilarious. It was a great video. I loved it. And I remember my Uncle Don was dating this woman, and I think her name was Sharon. I never liked her. Never liked her two kids either. Tim and Jeremy. We called them Tom and Jerry. Anyway, I remember watching the music video in the basement, and I remember she didn't approve of this music video. I want to say that she was a Jehovah's Witness, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Anyway, so there is some truth to the fact that parents didn't approve of this kind of music or this kind of imagery, They needed a guitar player. They had all these guest stars on the album, and basically by default, Vincent Cusano became the new guitar player in Kiss because they needed somebody to tour. Cusano changed his name to Vinnie Vincent, and his makeup was called the Ankh Warrior, and it's a little ankh in gold on his face. And he looks stupid, to be honest with you. But, you know, Vinnie has legions of fans today. And I have to say that the two albums that he wrote and played on, which are Creatures and the next album, Lick It Up, he saved Kiss. He really did. He brought back quality rock songwriting, riffs, solos. His ego and his personality were the issue. He never quite meshed with Kiss. And I don't think fans truly embraced him either. But Rob Daniels, I first saw Kiss in Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, but my two sisters had some Kiss in the late 70s. That's cool. That's cool, Rob. I didn't know that. Yeah, so Vinnie was a bit of a problem, and I guess even going into the next album and tour cycle, he still hadn't actually signed his contract to be a member of Kiss. He had issues, you know, he wanted to be an equal member, basically. He wanted to have equal say. But he was a problem. And I believe he ended up, I think he was fired from Kiss or quit Kiss 3 times or something like that over his tenure. But during his tenure, Kiss did something that made history. They finally took off the makeup. And this happened on MTV. The story goes that they were really trying to resurrect their career, and of course they needed something big to pull it off, and that would be taking off the makeup. What else could be bigger for them, right? And it happened during the making of the next album, which was going to be called Lick It Up. And Paul Stanley basically suggested, I believe I have this correct, that it was Paul Stanley who suggested that they try shooting some photos just in their regular street clothes. They didn't have costumes yet for their post-makeup era, you know? So Paul Stanley suggested they shoot an album cover in their street clothes. And yes, Mike Kudis and Rob Daniels, it is 100% true that Kiss did mix blood into the red ink for their Marvel comic. And I will be getting into that in a future story that I have called Truly a Marvel. So I've already plugged 2 future stories that I have coming up. One is called Truly a Marvel, and the other one is called Collecting All the Kiss on Cassette in the 80s. Lubrication. I forgot how difficult it is hosting a solo show. I'm gonna speed things up a bit here. Long story short, they took off the makeup. They did an MTV thing, and there's a great story about this by Robert V. Conti. There's a great story about how he was watching Kiss on TV on MTV that night, and he went to school the next day, and everybody else was talking about this Van Halen video that aired, and he goes, you know what? Van Halen. I was watching Kiss. And I really like that story. They took off the makeup. It generated some hype. Lick It Up was more successful than Creatures, which was a great album, by the way. Did I mention that? And Lick It Up is also a great album. The title track is classic. I believe there was a Family Guy episode recently that used Lick It Up through quite a few scenes. All Hell's Breaking Loose was another great song. That was an Eric Carr song that ended up having all 4 members getting writing credit on it. Do you remember the first one you did? 3 hours. Yeah, Chris, no kidding, man. No, that wasn't healthy, though, bud. Lick It Up, great album. They went on tour with Vinnie. More problems. It was evident that they were at the end of their rope with Vinnie. I remember reading a story about how when they were in front of a hometown crowd, I believe it was Vinnie's hometown, Vinnie decided to do an extended guitar solo well beyond what he is normally allotted to do. And I guess the band kind of cued him out several times, you know, to kind of cue him out of the solo, and he kept going, and they would cue him out again, and he kept going. He wasn't a team player, and he was fired, and his career has never recovered. He had a group that we'll talk about a bit later on, but Vinnie Vincent dug his own grave. He alienated Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, and harsh, you know, lawsuits and all, everything. You know, there's no love lost. They will never really ever reconcile. After Alive 2, they went way commercial, and yeah, you know what, Mike? I agree with you, bud. I agree with you. But as I said, Unmasked is a great pop album. Lick It Up is a great album too, but now they've lost another guitar player. 3 albums: Elder, Creatures, Lick It Up. 3 guitar players. Gone. What's next? Get another guitar player. Mark St. John from Pennsylvania? Can't remember. Mark St. John. He was a guitar teacher, and he hadn't really done much. And he was brought in to record the next album. Now, at this point, Gene Simmons had gone Hollywood, and he had gone on set for several months to do a movie called Runaway with Tom Selleck. And that brings us back to the Maxiac song, Magnum P.I. Tom Selleck. I believe it might have been his movie debut. I'm not 100% sure on this, but it was a big deal for Tom Selleck to be doing this Runaway movie, and Gene Simmons was cast as the villain, Luther, Charles Luther. And he had this cool gun that shot targeting bullets, so it could like turn a corner and follow you around corners until it got you. And he had these mechanical spiders that shot acid, and Tom Selleck had to take him down. This is a futuristic cop movie, basically, eh? And Gene Simmons was doing this while Paul Stanley was trying to make an album. And he called up Desmond Child as a co-writer. Desmond and Paul had a huge hit with I Was Made for Loving You in 1979, the disco hit. And together they wrote tracks like Heaven's on Fire. And Paul was basically in charge of the next Kiss album because Gene Simmons was off in Hollywood. The Gene songs were noticeably much weaker than the prior 2 albums, and the quality just wasn't there. I mean, I wish Scott Carson was watching tonight, because Scott Carson is the authority on 80s Kiss, and he would disagree with me harshly on the Animalize album. Regardless, it was a huge hit, and it went platinum. Rob Daniels says that Runaway is an interesting movie, great 80s cheese. I still like it. I probably have it in my DVD collection still. I mean, it's not a bad movie. It's really not bad. It's just not terrific. That's all. It has an interesting soundtrack, too. Maybe Rob can leave a comment about the soundtrack. I remember it having a lot of electronic music in it. I'd like to know a little bit about that, Rob. So two singles off that one. Heaven's on Fire, Thrills in the Night, which is my personal favorite. And a whole lot of Gene songs that really didn't do much. Like, Burn, Bitch, Burn. I want to put my log in your fireplace. Like, these are not good. These are not good lyrics, Gene. And they did a tour, and it was huge. Did a video from that tour, Animalize Live, uncensored, which was a big one to me, personally. Animalize Live, Jerry Goldsmith's score is awesome, says Rob. Thank you. Animalize Live Uncensored is basically my Kiss Alive 3. We talked about this a couple weeks ago when we did the second stream of live albums. Animalize Live is basically my Alive 3. Again, it's George Balaz. He brought his VCR over to my house. He dubbed me a video copy of Animalize Live Uncensored, and also dubbed me an audio copy onto a cassette, which I carried around in my Walkman all summer. And it was my first time hearing a lot of those songs. Harrison Kopp, was it actually live this time? I think it was mostly live. With a lot of videos, you can really tell when there's overdubbing, more so than a live album. I would say it was mostly live, Harrison, yes. I believe they also did a simultaneous audio broadcast of it, and the bootlegs of that are identical to the video, basically. So, yeah, I'm going to say it was live. Tour was huge, but there's a problem. Guitar player, his hands, they start swelling up. His fingers turn into the size of sausages. I believe he only lasted 3 gigs or something like that. They had to get a substitute guitar player. Bruce Kulick, whose brother Bob auditioned for Kiss in 1973-74 and played on Alive 2 and played on Kiss Killers. Gene Simmons, in his book, Sex, Money, Kiss, said that director Michael Crichton's casting of him was based primarily on an audition where Crichton asked Simmons to stare at him about a minute without making any facial expressions. Apparently, Crichton decided that Simmons looked menacing enough and cast him for the role of Luther. That comes from Rob Daniels. I will add one thing to that story. I believe Michael Crichton asked Simmons to stare at him with the intent to kill for a minute without saying a word. I believe that was the added caveat to that, was that he wanted Gene to communicate without words that he wanted to kill you. And Gene successfully did that with his evil demon stare. Yeah, so, guitar player. His hands swell up. He can't play. They have to call a substitute, Bruce Kulick. He comes in to do the Animalize tour and saves the day. Eventually, they realize, you know what? It's not working out. Mark St. John's hands are not going to get better. To this day, they really don't know what happened. It might have been a psychosomatic response, like nerves, essentially. And had to replace him. Bruce Kulick became the fourth new guitar player in 4 years, 4 tours, 4 albums. Fortunately, they found the right guy this time, but it's a real shame. Mark St. John's guitar playing was more technical. He was a classical jazz player. I don't think it suited Kiss, but that was what was in vogue at the time. Bruce Kulick was much more versatile, as we will find out as we go through his career a little bit. But yeah, it's unfortunate. And Mark passed away about maybe a decade ago. After this, it was time to make yet another album. At this point, Kiss were still making one album a year. So 85 rolls in, and for the first time, they let the new guy... Well, the first time since Vinnie Vincent, really. Vinnie Vincent was allowed to write, but they're letting Bruce write songs, and he's quite good at it, He's got writing credits on a number of tracks on the next album. But Gene was still pretty much in La La Land. He was doing more movies. What's it called? Never Too Young to Die, or... Rob, help me out here. I know Gene did a couple more movies, and his head wasn't in the game. He had some really shitty songs on the next album. Half-assed stuff. Love's a deadly weapon, and murder's on my mind. Lubrication. Boy, bad! Yeah, next album comes out. It's called Asylum, and for the first time in many years, it's got 3 singles: Tears Are Falling, All Night, and Who Wants to Be Lonely? Who Wants to Be With You Tonight? All Paul songs. I should go back a bit and mention that so far we're 3 albums into the no makeup career. Gene hasn't had a single. His last single was I Love It Loud and Creatures of the Night. He doesn't have an entire non-makeup single for the entire rest of the decade. He doesn't get one until 1992. A lot of that had to do with the quality of his songs, and this is an ongoing issue. Now, Asylum, it did well enough, whatever. Never Too Young to Die and Wanted, Dead or Alive were a couple of the films that Gene did after Runaway. He really wanted to break into Hollywood, and I guess maybe this was around the time that he's dating Cher. I'm not 100% sure of the timeline here, but he's definitely dating someone, guaranteed. Yeah, so at this point, Kiss are sort of, in my opinion, coasting. Paul Stanley's doing all the legwork. The albums are suffering for it, but they're still doing well enough. But interesting things start happening at this point. There's a 2-year break between albums. Yes, Chris, not only did Gene Simmons date Cher, but also Diana Ross. We got Kiss doing their very first home video called Exposed, which is today not looked back on that fondly because it's really, 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 really sexist, and also barely has Bruce and Eric in it. But it was a pioneering video for its time. There was nothing else like it. Ace Frehley debuts his first solo band, Frehley's Comet, with an excellent, excellent debut album, self-titled. Trick or Treat, says Rob Daniels. Gene was in that. He had a cameo. That's correct, yes. Vinnie Vincent Invasion put out their debut album with Robert Fleischman on lead vocals, who was in Journey. Had a bass player named Dana Strum, who was the guy that apparently got Randy Rhoads into Ozzy Osbourne's band. and a drummer by the name of Bobby Rock, who would later go on to be the drummer in Nelson. Remember Nelson? And Robert Fleischman did not survive very long. In a very Kiss-like fashion, he was let go before they even shot a music video. And they got another singer by the name of Mark Slaughter, who sang lead vocals on the single "Boys Are Gonna Rock," miming Robert Fleischman's voice, and nobody even knew that it was a different guy. He and Dana Strum later founded Slaughter, who you've heard of. Gene was also in an episode of Miami Vice, says Rob. I'm really glad I have Rob here. I have to get him to help me co-host one night. Yeah, so all this is happening. The Exposed video comes out to buy them some time while they prepare another studio album. And at this point, people are starting to stretch their credit cards and their checking accounts a bit. They're stretched out. They're not selling as many albums. The tours aren't doing as well as they did in the makeup years. Animalize was a blip, you know. It did really well, but it was a blip. And they need to refocus. So what would you do? We're getting into 1987. What would you do if you were Kiss and you wanted to refocus and have some success? What would you do? I'm just gonna wait for a comment before I tell you what Kiss did. You wanna have hits again. What would you do? 1987. I know what I would do, but let's see what these guys say. Let's see the comments. What would you do? It's 1987. You're Kiss. You need to have a hit because your bank accounts are dying. What would you do? Put shades on a Sphinx, says Harrison Kopp. Not yet. Not yet. That's a good answer, though. I like that. No! Play Beth a lot, says Frank Toms. That goes back to Sausage Fest a couple years ago, and that's how I woke up Uncle Meat, by playing Beth on repeat, different versions. No, Frank, you know what? They stopped playing Beth at this point, but not for long. No, what they did was they said, let's copy Bon Jovi! Yeah! Let's copy the new guy! Let's copy John Bon! So, you know, the hair got bigger, the costumes got sleeker, and keyboards. Paul Stanley began writing songs on keyboards. Yay! Ha! Keyboards! Kiss! Hey! I'm being sarcastic. And we started hearing rumors that the album was going to be called Who Dares Wins, but that changed to Crazy Nights, which I didn't understand because I said at the time, this is where Michael Bolton comes into the fold. Not yet, Scott, not yet. Michael Bolton already predates this with Bruce Kulick's band of Blackjack, but we'll get to Michael Bolton. Don't worry about Michael. Don't worry about Michael. 80 sit-down sound, says Rob Daniels. That's right, keyboards, buddy. That's what they did. So they get Ron Nevison, who'd produced Heart and Ultimate Sin for Ozzy Osbourne, to come in and produce. Gene Simmons clashed with him, and Paul Stanley loved him. You know, the band isn't united at this point. Eric Carr can't get a song on the album, and he wrote some decent ones at this point. They're out on some of his solo discs. But he couldn't get a song on an album. Bruce Kulick wrote a lot of tunes again, and so did a lot of outside writers, like I believe Jean Bouvier had a song on here, or however you pronounce his name. He's American. He probably doesn't pronounce it like that. I believe Desmond had more songs on this album. You know, that kind of stuff. Crazy Nights comes out, and I was disappointed. I think a lot of fans were. It's very soft in spots with a lot of keyboards and some really fillery songs. I remember the second track. George Balaz bought the album the day it came out. He invited me over to tape it. And the second track comes on, I'll Fight Hell to Hold You. And George said to me, if this song made the album, imagine the tracks that didn't. And I just kind of shuddered, because it's not a good song. Neither is Bang Bang You. Neither is When Your Walls Fall Down. These are not great songs. There's a ballad on there called Reason to Live, which was a semi-hit, too keyboardy. Oh, I remember there's this embarrassing part in the music video where Bruce Kulick is playing keyboards. It was really, it's cringeworthy, that scene. But it also had some decent tunes on there. I quite like some of the Gene songs, like She's a good girl gone bad. Best love I ever had. I like that song. I like I can't remember the other one. There's a couple Gene songs on there that I like a lot, and there's a great Paul Stanley anthem called Turn on the Night. Whoa! Very Bon Jovi, but good. Good. I like it. The title track, Crazy Nights. They hit it twice. Oh, and I lost my train of thought. I never understood why they called the album Crazy Nights, because I immediately associate that name with loudness. Rock and roll crazy nights, you are the heroes tonight. You know, I didn't get it. I didn't get why they called it Crazy Nights. I still don't. But Crazy Nights was a single, and it didn't really do much for me. It was embarrassing. The Kiss logo behind them was different. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, Scott Pell loves I'll Fight Hell to Hold You. Well, I guess he can hold you then, buddy. Yeah, so, Crazy Nights was a disappointing album, and I remember this was around the time George Blas was going to see Kiss live in concert, probably Scott too, and I remember them saying that they weren't very good live. And I remember reports of Ted Nugent opening for them, and everybody being extremely bored with Nuge. And I remember reports of half-filled stadiums. Very disappointing stuff to hear, but Crazy Nights was not the hit that it was designed to be. But before we reconvene, Ace Frehley puts out a second album called Second Sighting, and Vinnie Vincent Invasion puts out a second album and breaks up. All this before we can get to another Kiss album. Frankie Toms. You know what? Michael Lefebvre, good point. Crazy Nights actually was a hit in the UK. That's a great point. I'm really glad I got you guys here to comment. Thank you. Interesting point. There's a Kiss CD with a white cover called Greatest Hits that was released in England, and I believe Crazy Nights is one of the first songs on the album. So, yeah. Top 10 in the UK charts. There you go, Michael Lefebvre. Thank you for the fact. So, Frankie Toms said if he was Kiss in the 80s looking for another hit, he'd play Beth a lot. Well, guess what, buddy? They did a big mistake. A big mistake. They needed to make some money. What do? Put out a Greatest Hits album. Greatest Hits albums need new material on them. What do? You fucking re-record Beth with Eric Carr singing the lead vocals? Cringe. It's like they wouldn't throw Peter Criss a bone and let him have a vocal on a Greatest Hits album. Ace Frehley had no lead vocal tracks on the Greatest Hits album either. Eric Carr had wanted to get a vocal on a Kiss album basically since Creatures, He really thought that he should have had one on Crazy Nights. He thought he should have had one on Asylum. For him to get his first Kiss lead vocal on a fucking cover of Beth, it's a slap in the face to both Eric and Peter Criss. Peter wasn't happy about it. You can't blame Eric. The guy wanted to get his voice on a Kiss album. They tell him, hey, Eric, guess what? We're going to give you a lead vocal. You can sing Beth. What are you going to do? You're not going to say no. I don't care who you are. You're not going to say no. You want your lead vocal on that album. Paul wrote a couple other tracks, new songs called Let's Put the X in Sex and You Make Me Rock Hard. Beth is good, said Chris. Yeah, no, it's good, but why would you get the new Kiss drummer to sing it? It's insulting. It's insulting. These two new songs, especially Let's Put the X in Sex, were not well received by Kiss fans. I believe Desmond co-wrote these ones too. Kiss fans were getting kind of sick and tired of the pop side creeping up too much. And Let's Put the X in Sex had a horn section. It was either a horn section or synths. It's hard to tell. Probably synths, but You know, one thing that bugged me, and it started with Crazy Nights. In the videos, Paul Stanley wasn't playing his guitar anymore. He was just dancing while his guitar was on him. These are crazy, 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 crazy nights. He wasn't playing the guitar in the video anymore. And in the Let's Put the X in Sex video, he gave up all pretenses, and he wasn't even wearing the guitar anymore. He was standing up in front of the band as if he was just the front man. You know, I think this really hurt the band. I know Gene Simmons said that there were times where, you know, he didn't know what to do with his image without the demon stuff. He didn't know what to do with his image, and he felt like, hey, I'm just a bass player in a band. I'm the guy behind Paul, you know? And I think that hurt the band. I heard it can hurt the brand. Definitely hurt Gene's stage charisma. He looked awful, quite frankly, during this time. It wasn't until he grew the evil Spock goatee did Gene Simmons regain that sense of, you know, the menace. That side of him where he had to stare at somebody with the intent to kill. When he was dressed up with the big hair and sort of feminine makeup and these long sequined gowns, it was not working image-wise. And really, this greatest hits era is a serious low point in history. The album was called Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits, and it consisted of 15 songs, one of which was Beth, recorded by Eric Carr, and 2 new songs, Let's Put the X in Sex and You Make Me Rock Hard. Hey, my mom's here. Hey, LaBraine, I think she's trying to say. I was telling her that we're going to teach her about Kiss. So, you're late, Mom, but I'll teach you about Kiss. Gene was still kind of... At this point, he had his Simmons Records. He'd signed Laws Netto, who was in a British band called Sniffin' the Tears, and he signed House of Lords, which was basically Greg Giuffria. It was basically the next band Giuffria album. They released it under the band House of Lords, which is still together today with only James Christian remaining from the original lineup. But they put out a great debut album. Gene was signing other bands. He signed Gypsy Rose out of Toronto. Smashes, Thrashes, and Trashes, says Harrison. That's good. Yeah, you got me there, bud. Yeah, so, you know, Gene wasn't focused, and you know, you could tell. Simmons Records ultimately only lasted a couple of years. Never really had any big hits. House of Lords was the biggest band that they had. And again, they put out a great album. At this point, Paul Stanley was also kind of doing his own thing. There were a lot of rumors in the press at this point that Kiss were on the verge of breakup, and you can kind of see where these rumors were coming from, because Gene and Paul were on opposite sides of the plane here. Paul was in the studio recording demos, and he eventually ended up doing George was a character. My mom's obviously way behind. Where were we? Sorry. Okay. So, Smashes and Thrashes, Paul's doing some solo demo recordings, and eventually he does a solo tour. And it did well. He played a lot of songs that Kiss hadn't been playing in years because they were playing more recent 80s stuff. He had a guy on drums named Eric Singer. Eric Singer was previously in Black Sabbath and Lita Ford. And he was in a band at that exact time called Badlands with Jakey Lee from Ozzy Osbourne's band. And Eric Carr, the drummer in Kiss, Eric Singer. Eric Carr, the drummer in Kiss, was hurt by the fact that Paul didn't ask him to be on the solo tour, but Paul wanted to have all non-Kiss members, so he asked Eric Singer. And Eric Carr saw Paul play the clubs. Bob Kulick, by the way, played guitar for Paul on the solo tour, and he played a lot of tunes from the Paul Stanley solo album from '78. Eric Carr saw one of the gigs, and he looked at Eric Singer and he said, "That's the guy that's going to replace me." And unfortunately, that is exactly what happened when Eric died. But that's beyond this series. Eric died in 1991, and Eric Singer was the drummer that replaced him. That's a whole other story that I'm not going to get into. Kiss seemed really fragmented and fractured at this point, but really the admirable thing about them is, as close as they've come to breaking up over the years, they never have. They've kept on persevering and persevering and persevering. And what do you do but put out another album? So Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits bought them some time. Gene got to do his record label. Paul got to do his solo tour. And it's time to get back in the studio. And they start recording demos again. And they decide that they need to ease up on the pop side of things. Thanks Scott. The late Bob Kulick, yep. They need to ease up on the pop side of things. So, they start writing with some other guys. Tommy Thayer from Black and Blue enters the picture at this point. They start writing with Tommy Thayer. I believe Desmond was still involved with the single. Desmond Child and Holly Knight co-wrote the single Hide Your Heart. But there were a lot of tracks that were just written by Gene alone. And there was an Eric song that wasn't a cover of a previous one. The interesting thing about the next album, Hot in the Shade, was that Gene and Paul decided to kind of produce it on their own. They didn't need Ron Nevison or whoever to produce it for them. And Gene and Paul used a lot of demos that they'd written and recorded with Bruce Kulick and just ended up overdubbing the demos. So the album ended up being a bit rougher, which is better than polished, I think. I think the album was headed in the right direction in certain ways. Almost no keyboards. A lot more guitar. A lot more rock. But still suffering from lack of focus and bloat. They put 15 songs on this new album, which is about 5 too many. Think of classic Kiss albums, they almost always have 9 to 10 songs. So, bloat. Too much filler. They put it all on there. Hot in the Shade could have been a stronger album, but because of, hey, let's do 15 songs, why not? Hey! You know, the intent is there to give the fans value for the money, but really you could have just put out the extra songs as B-sides on singles. I don't think The Street Giveth, The Street Taketh Away is all that good. It was interesting that it had acoustic guitar in it. I think some of the songs are excellent. Rise to It has this really swampy, bluesy slide guitar intro. I think it's a dobro, but I'm not 100% sure. Bruce Kulick knocked it out of the park on Hot in the Shade. Just knocked it out of the park. His tone wasn't the greatest, but this is largely because they rushed the album and they didn't have a proper producer. But there's some decent stuff on there. Silver Spoon is interesting. Cadillac Dreams has a horn section on it. And there's a track written by a guy that you may have heard of. A guy by the name of Michael Bolton. Michael Bolton was a crooner. How am I supposed to live without you? But he was in a rock band with Bruce Kulick called Blackjack before this. He was a rock and roller. And it's a good album, I'll tell you. The Blackjack album is a good album. I have it. I've reviewed it. Harrison Kopp. Cool cover art on Hot in the Shade. All they did was put a pair of sunglasses over the Sphinx, but hey, I liked it. This was the last new Kiss album of the 80s. And guess what? It wasn't a hit. Probably one of the issues was that they delayed touring until the following year, 1990. So there was no Kiss tour until 1990, and by then they were on to the second single, which was this track called Forever. This ballad with Michael Bolton. And it was a hit. You know, enough of a hit. I remember Ace Frehley trashing it in a Guitar Magazine interview. I remember him saying, I've heard that song that they have out now called Tomorrow or Yesterday or whatever it's called. Forever. And he said, I guess Kiss are more into a pop thing now. Well, I don't know about that. I still rock. I'm paraphrasing, but this is basically what Frehley said. I see Ancient Egypt, I like, says Harrison Kopp. No problem with you there, bud. No problem with you there. Do you like Revenge of the Fallen when they find the Sun Crusher or whatever it is inside the Great Pyramid? Let me know. Yeah, so they did this track Forever. It was a ballad. It was a bit of a hit. The music video is great. It's just a straight performance, black and white performance video with a little bit of Rose mixed in, but I think it had integrity. More integrity than Reason to Live had. It's just a basic acoustic song, and Bruce Kulick's solo on it is awesome. The acoustic solo album on it is awesome. And nobody else can play it like Bruce did. Tommy Thayer has played the solo, and it's not as good. Not as good. Sorry. Tommy Thayer is a great guitar player, and he's great. It's perfect for current Kiss, where they have to play something from every era. Tommy Thayer is the guy to do that. But he can't play the solo in Forever. Not like Bruce Kulick can. Well, the problem about talking about Kiss in the 80s is that there's no real neat and tidy ending. They didn't get to tour until 1990. And again, the tour did kind of so-so. There was a problem in Toronto when they were on the same bill as Whitesnake. And Whitesnake wouldn't let them use their full stage setup. And Paul Stanley said a few words about David Coverdale, and David Coverdale and Whitesnake got booed when they hit the stage. But unfortunately, that's outside of this discussion tonight. 80s Kiss. It's an interesting era because of all the lineup changes, you know? I'm going to open the drapes again because it's not as bright outside. It's an interesting era because of those lineup changes. It's an interesting era because it has a lot of songs in it that are notable still. I believe Rise to It is still a good song. I believe most of Lick It Up, most of Creatures, good chunk of The Elder. These are good albums. And I didn't really get into the Kiss Killers thing too much, but two of those four songs, I'm a Legend Tonight and Nowhere to Run, they're fucking classic. Classic. I remember being so impressed with them when I heard them. I remember saying to my friends, Kiss need to do an entire album that sounds like those two songs. It's not something that ever happened. Anyway, that's the problem with 80s Kiss, is it doesn't have a neat and tidy ending. It's just kind of a cliffhanger. I'll probably never do a 90s Kiss live stream because that's just a mess, and the reunion just kind of fucks up the whole chronology. Just, no. Not going to do 90s Kiss. Besides, there's only, like 2 albums in the 90s? That was the problem with the reunion. Kiss stopped being creative. Here's a fact. You know how many studio albums Kiss have done since the 1996 reunion? 24 years ago? Guess how many Kiss studio albums there's been since the 1996 reunion tour. I'll wait. I'll check my messages. One, says Harrison. No, it's actually not one. It's 3. They've done 3 studio albums in 24 years. Psycho Circus in 1998. Sonic Boom in 2008 or 2009. And Monster in 2012. That's it. 3 studio albums since the reunion. That's the problem. When Kiss reunited, they became a live entity primarily. That's where their bread and butter was. That's where their money was. That wasn't the case before. You know, they really needed to make albums and try harder, to be honest with you. Anyway, that's Kisstory. I'm going to show you one more thing here before we call it a night. This is not an unboxing per se. This is, I've already opened, but I'm going to show you. See, I only thought of Monster, says Harrison. I've showed these off on previous live streams, these little reaction figures They're 3 3/4 inch action figures with 5-point articulation. And they come from multiple lines. The ones that I have open here are all Transformers. But I've got a box here of reaction figures from multiple lines. And I haven't actually started digging through this box yet. So we're going to take them out one by one and show you. Andre the Giant. You can see the reaction logo there. Each one of these figures has its own card unique to the line. Over 4 inches tall, the 8th wonder of the world. And as you can see on the back, I believe there are 2 Andre figures available. The one with the, what was that called, a unitard? I don't know what it's called. Yeah, so this is sort of like mid-'80s Andre the Giant when he was enemies with Hulk Hogan. Another Transformer. Jetfire. It's a nice one. Comes with a gun. You can see the gun there on the side. You can kind of see the gun. It's a nice one. Yeah. I like that. Oh. 2 here that have to be shown together. Oops. You know what? I got to keep some of these carded. I can't open some of these because carded, they're too cool. They Live. And then, if you know the movie They Live, you know what this is all about. Basically, what you're seeing here is sort of like a glasses on, glasses off version of the card. And the backs of the card are completely different. Harrison Kopp, Revenge of the Fallen, Jetfire Superior, G1 Jetfire Inferior. No, wrong. Maxi Axe, I like him carrying around Carrie Elways. Yeah, man. Yeah, The Princess Bride. That was just on last weekend. We just watched it last weekend. The 2 figures here are not identical. One of them has a gray face and one of them has the blue face. But if you've seen the movie They Live, you know what this is about. And I see no point in opening these figures. These ones have to stay carded. Look at them. That is cool. That is too cool to open. Maybe I'll make a deal with myself that I'll only open the Transformers figures. Here's a cool one. Maybe I'll open this one too because it can go. it can mingle with Transformers, you know. The alien from Aliens. There's a ton of different varieties of alien figures available. Basically, what I ordered were some of the more affordable figures that Big Bad Toy Store had. Go to BigBadToyStore.com. Rob, that is where I ordered your future Mandalorian figure from. And I guess I ordered a duplicate of this one because I wanted one sealed and one to open. It's Papa Emeritus from the band Ghost. Do they come with some bubblegum, asked Frank Toms? No, but aren't they so retro? Yeah. So, yeah, I bought 2 because I wanted to keep one carded. So I think what I'm going to do here is I am going to keep carded one Andre, one Papa, and both They Live guys. I'm going to keep these guys carded. I'm not going to open them. Those can stay safe and sound. But because I want to play with them, I am going to open one Papa. I am going to open Jetfire, and I am going to open the Alien. On the back, you can see other figures that are available. So, I'll read them off before I show you the back. We have Alpha Trion from the cartoon, Grimlock, Mirage, Astro Train, Rumble, Shockwave, and Shrapnel, Jazz, and Soundwave, in addition to the ones that I've already shown you. And there could be more since then, because they come in waves. So there could be more since then. For the rock and roll ones, we have Motorhead, Slayer, King Diamond, and Papa. So those are the characters that you'd be getting with those. And for the Aliens line, it doesn't say any other figures available in the line, but I know there's a ton of them. A ton of them. And you can imagine how easy it is to come up with different varieties of aliens from those movies. Yeah, so I'm going to open these. I'm going to keep those sealed. That worked out well. Oh, and you know what? Since Harrison is here, I'll show off something else. Oh. Funny thing is, the cover for it is still on my scanner bed. Because I just finished my review for this. This is following up from a previous live stream. As I reassemble the CD. This is what Harrison helped me acquire on a previous live stream. This is Black Sabbath's Cross Purposes with bonus track, What's the Use? Japanese version. It's very, very hard to find one of these for under $100. But during a live stream, Harrison found a copy on Discogs. It's just missing the Obi strip. That's it. It's otherwise fine. It's fine. Harrison helped me find this, and I ordered it live during my live stream. Cool! And there's the Japanese booklet. You can see it has some English lyrics, and it has some Japanese text. Neat, huh? So thank you, Harrison. After, I would say, about 28 years of seriously trying to collect all the Black Sabbath, I've done it. Thanks to Harrison. That's it. That's the last one. And when I say collect all the Black Sabbath, community, says Harrison. When I say collect all the Black Sabbath, what I mean by that is when I collect a band, basically what I want is a physical copy of every version of every song. And with Black Sabbath officially released every version of every song. Stuff like bootlegs and demos that are circulating in fan communities are an added bonus to a complete collection, which I also try to collect that stuff too. But my primary goal is always going to be getting every song, every version in a physical copy. And that was the last one. I had downloaded What's the Use 10 years ago, but downloads don't sound as good, especially ones from 10 years ago. Bandwidth, baby. And, yeah. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you, Harrison. Much appreciated. Well, I would say we have done a successful live stream here. I thank you so much for watching, whoever and wherever you are. I have a hard time, when I'm on the desktop, I have a hard time seeing who's watching and who's not. I'd like to thank Chris Sarr for loyally watching every week. Colette Bryant, do any of your action figures sing Kiss songs? Good question. Suppose so. Sure. Beth, I hear you call. Beth, I hear you calling, but I can't come home right now. Yeah, Chris Sarr loves that song, don't you? Thank you, Rob. Anyway, yeah, that's all I got planned for tonight, really. We're pretty much at the hour and a half mark, which is par for the course. So thank you for watching, and I don't know what's going on next week. Maybe I'll have a co-host. I have something in the works for a co-host that you have not seen before. And, yeah, thank you for joining. I'm going to peace out. I'm going to get another drink because these are empty. And my throat is, talking for an hour and a half is hard work, as Rob Daniels will tell you. He has to do it for 2 hours on Saturday nights. Tune in to Visions in Sound tonight at midnight at CKWR for a show about Angel-related soundtrack albums. So, yeah, that'll be cool. Guaranteed Gene Simmons is not involved in any way, shape, or form with the Rob Daniels show tonight, Visions in Sound. I'd like to thank Jason Drury from the Cinematic Sound Archive for the t-shirt. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'm going to peace out, get something to eat, get something to drink, and I'm going to rock and roll all night. Oh, and there's the link to catch Rob's show at CKWR. So please do that. Support the community. Rock and roll all night, party every day. And, yeah, I guess I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.